Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to week 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. It is week 33 of the Quilters Playcation Adventure Sewalong. I am your host, Cheryl Larkson. There is Elmer the dog, who's in my bad books at the moment because he pooped on the floor. I need to vent. He doesn't actually, unless he's running up and down the stairs, he doesn't terribly let us know that he needs to go outside, even though he was bell trained when we got him and we continued that. So he doesn't always let us know. He's it has to be an emergency and he will go, otherwise he will be good. But then he goes outside, and if you leave him out there for too long, boy, does he whine and complain about coming in. Do that to go out. But I digress. So I had to clean up some poop on the carpet just outside my door. I was annoyed. Anyway, hi. I'm Cheryl Larkson, your host on the Quilters Playcation Adventure Sew-Along Rainbow Edition for 2024. This is, as I said before, week 33 of our Sew-Along, 33 of 49, which is frightening to think that there are only 16 weeks left after this. Don't want to think about it because we're still in the middle of the summer and I'm enjoying it. I'm not thinking beyond this. Live in the present. Let's just be in the present, which means we're playing with rainbows today. So I have made a block. This is for the center of this row. I feel like there's extra pressure on these ones in the center. I don't know why. I think it's just me more than anything. But here is the block. And I've made a little boo-boo, which I'm not going to point out right now, but I will talk about it when it comes time to finishing the block. So this is our block. It is a rainbow of skinny strips interspersing another rainbow. So it's two rainbows in one this week. I kind of played around with different ways to put the fabric together, and I've settled on what I think is the easiest. There are a couple of things to think about while we're doing it, so I'm actually going to go through the process. I haven't pre-made any of the strips, even though the sewing is pretty straightforward and boring. The thinking about things and the little bit of planning, that's required, just so you don't have to fix things later, is what we're going to do. So let's head over to the sewing table. I will bring you over here. The dog decided to leave. We will turn you around. We will say hello to the ladies and get here on the cutting table. So you'll see I have my big ruler. I needed my big ruler because here's what we're going to do. We are making a block that is going to be square. Let's show it to you here. Our block is square. So we're going to need two strip sets. We're going to need the strip set that is this one here that goes across the block, and then we'll need the one that makes up the block in the center. Now, logically, you would think I'm going to make this one first, right? The big one first, and I'll make that a square, and then I'll cut it apart. Well, I want to minimize your scraps, so we're not going to do that first. We're actually going to do that one second. We're going to do the strip set for the middle first. Now I wanted skinny strips, so I freehand cut. You can see they're a little bit wonky. You can use a ruler, you could measure, you can do all of those things. But because I wanted skinny, I kind of went between sort of 1-ish inch and to at the most like 1.5, so that these would be skinny. I didn't worry about them being all the same. Like I said, you can if you prefer that, but this is the way that I went ahead and did this. How long do these strips need to be? Well, obviously we're not going to be cutting to different lengths. We're going to be squaring that up. So we just need to know this length. How do you figure that out? This is where that little bit of thinking comes in. I'm going to take my square ruler. I know that my pastel version blocks are 10.5 inches when I square them up and trim them. So I'm going to find that 10.5 inch mark on my ruler. Just hold this up, right? So I know that's square, and then I want to measure that length on the diagonal. I just want to show you these little numbers here, right? 8, 9, 10. That is not on this Omni grid, which is a common ruler. That is not the length of this line. That is only pointing out that corner where it's 10 here and 10 here. It does not give you the length of this line. So you need to measure that, because that will tell you how long your strips are going to have to be. So if I want to go to 10.5, which is, I'm going to put that up right there, I'm just going to take my long ruler, because I know it's longer than any of my short rulers, and measure that. And it gives me kind of almost bang on at 15. I want a little bit of wiggle room, so I'm going to go to 16 here. So I want to make my skinny strips 16 inches long. The dog has come back and wants me to throw a ball, and he's being super annoying. So I'm going to set that square ruler aside, and I've got all of my strips. Now, I was quickly cutting them. That's why I was a few minutes late. So I don't know if they're all exactly the length I need. So I'm just going to use my ruler, my cutting mat, I should say, which I don't normally use for length. I use it as a surface. I don't really use it to help me actually cut length of things or sizes of things. But I knew some of my pieces were a bit long, so there's those 3 are done. Because this isn't an exact thing, you don't have to be super exact on this, but you don't want to be too short. So a little bit long, great, but you don't want to be really short by any stretch. And you also have the choice, remember, to do this in rainbow order or to play with it, have things be a little bit different. It's entirely up to you, maker's choice. So now I want to sew these together. I am going to go in rainbow order. So what I like to do is actually lay it out in rainbow order like that, just so I have less chance of being confused like that. You couldn't see that. Less chance of being confused. And I'm going to be as efficient as possible, and I'm going to strip piece, or I mean chain piece these. Sorry. We are making a strip set, but I'm going to chain piece this. So also these two together, these two together, these two together, then press, and then finish it up. It's just about efficiency at the machine. So if you have everything ready to go, you can quickly do that. Especially when it's just long, straight strips. It's not very exciting. There's the first set. Second set. I'm not worrying about the fact that these strips aren't totally pressed, because they are going to get pressed in the next step. But if you feel more comfortable having them nice and flat before you start, by all means, go for it. I'm just giving you permission to not worry about that. And just try to have a consistent seam allowance as you sew these together. Okay, so that is the 3 sewn together. Now you could go ahead and sew these together and press them afterwards. I like to press them at this stage. And the reason for that is that these can get, sorry, my ruler's in the way. These can get really kind of stretched out as you go. And if you're trying to press like a bigger strip set that hasn't been pressed before, it's more likely to stretch out. Do I have any great tips on keeping it from stretching out? Nope, sorry, don't. I am prone to doing it myself sometimes, but I do like to set that seam and then go and then one of the things, and you've heard me say it before, is you just want to press. We're not running up and down with the iron like that, because that will indeed stretch it out. So it may be imperceptible to you, but releasing the pressure on the pressing mat as I go up this strip. So there's one. Choose a direction to press towards. Especially with the skinny strips, it's easier if they're kind of all pressed in the same direction. So I'm pressing mine kind of towards the purple end of the rainbow. The other thing you may notice I'm doing is using my fingers just as a guide for this. And then the last one, and then we'll sew that together. Okay. So as I said, sewing is easy. It's just about thinking about what we need to do. Now I can see that one getting a little off. I got cocky. So go slow, especially the longer the strips are. You're just going to want to be careful with that. Okay. Let's go back over here and finish this off. So now I'm going to sew these two together, and then you can stop and press it and sew the last one, or you can sew these two together, pull it out of the machine, and then sew the last one on. It's really just that first, when you make them pairs, that I like to do the pressing. But maker's choice. Hold on one second. My dog has a ball he's not supposed to have. And you've already destroyed it. It's all right. I could hear him chewing and he had a ball he's not supposed to have, but he already wrecked it. Did not get it in time. That little stinker of ours is a bit of a chewer. Despite the fact that we buy him tons of chew toys and he loves them, he will find things. Last night I had to build an IKEA cabinet. One of actually my favorite pieces from IKEA. It's one of those like lockers, but it's just low. We've used them before. My son still has one in his room that holds Lego and his Kiwi kits. But we had to buy one for shoes because every time we leave the house, the dog likes to eat shoes. Don't even think about it, Elmer. He's looking through my sewing room here. What could I chew? What could I chew? Okay, so I sewed all of them together, and now I'm just going to give them a press. I'm going to press them just the way I did the other strips. No need to change that process. Actually, let's do the other side first. Yellow to orange one. There we go. Because that way it'll be pressed and I don't have to worry about it kind of going the wrong way. All right, and now the green to blue. And then this strip set is complete. And what we have to do now is a little bit of measuring. So we know how big to make the second strip set. Okay. Oh, never ceases to make me happy. Love our rainbow. Okay, so let's get the square ruler again. This time you can actually have it laying on the bottom. Put your strip set kind of roughly in the middle, and it's going to give you an idea of how tall each of these sides needs to be. Also, how wide. You might think, hey, I need to make one that's 10.5 inches wide. You would be wrong. You don't, because it doesn't go all the way to the 10.5 inches. In my case, it's sort of 3 to 10.5 inches is what I'm going to need. A little bit of wiggle room for seam allowance. So let's say 8. I want to have an 8-inch on that side. We'll just confirm that we're the same here. Yeah, 8 inches will get me enough here. And it will get me enough height-wise. So I need to make my second strip set to be about an 8-inch square. Again, I'm not measuring, I'm eyeballing, but this will allow me to get the 2 corners that I need. So we'll set that aside, and I'm going to start gathering my strips. I said 8 inches. Maybe just a touch of wiggle room on there. I have the first one cut, so I'll just base all the other ones off of that. I had some scraps here that I'm using. You can vary the width of these. I would just give your pink and your purple or whatever's on the outsides of your rainbow a little bit more, right? Just want to have a little bit extra there so that you have some wiggle room, shall we say, for any kind of squaring up issues. So that one's long. There we go. And I have to cut my purple and my orange because I didn't have any scraps off the bolts, or off, it's not really the bolts, off the piece for those. So I'll just use this, like I said, purple. Give myself a little bit extra. So you can use the ruler or not. Using the ruler there was just a matter of measurement more than anything. And then orange. You could certainly dig into your scrap bins for this as well. My orange one, I don't quite need. There we go. Oop. Missed a couple of threads in the corner. Okay, so now I have my pieces here. Right, if we put them in order, again, I've got extra on that pink, so we're going to cut that off. No point sewing what we don't need. Yellow, green, blue, and purple. Okay, double check on height. Yeah, they're all over 8 inches. We have a little bit extra purple. Again, we'll just trim that off. Okay, and now I want to, obviously, they're not sewn together. But this is going to give me an idea, right? This is 14 inches, and I only need 8. I'm going to have a lot extra. And then I may lose my colors on the outside. So I'm going to go ahead and actually trim some of these down. Didn't push hard enough with that ruler, or that rotary cutter. Right, I'm just going to trim a couple down to give me, you know, a little bit less fabric to contend with at that point. Right, obviously I'm going to lose some seam allowances. There's 5 seams, so it's going to get 2.5 inches smaller, but it's still more. I have lots of purple. I'm going to lose some of the blue there. Right, where are we at? Still have a lot, so let's lose some orange. And then I'll wait and trim off the purple and the pink afterwards. Okay, so we've got this a little bit smaller. Get it there. Now I'm going to go ahead and sew this together just like we did the other rainbow strip set. These seams are half the length of the first one, so shouldn't take too long here. But I'm going to do the exact same process where I sew it in pairs and then press and then assemble the end bit. Okay, also when you sew it in pairs and you're looking for something that's at a certain width, this is a good time that you can check it because you've done some seams, right? So you can have a bit of an idea what's going on exactly. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to press to the purple on this one. Alrighty. There we go. So obviously it's shrunk up quite a bit. And we're just going to leave it like that because those seam allowances should take us to more or less where we want to be. This time I'm just going to press as I go because that's what I just did. That's all. And then the last one. And then once we've had this, got this sewn and a press, really all we need to do is insert the other strip set. So it's a strip set within a strip set. Makes sense, hey? One made with wider pieces, one with skinny ones. Okay, so make sure that strip set is nice and flat. Happy with where that is. I'm just going to double check that length. Oh yeah, plenty, nearly 9 inches and over 8 there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and cut that on the diagonal. I'm actually just going to, you could cut it on either diagonal. I'm going this way. I just had to rotate the block just because of where I'm standing, but it really doesn't matter, right? So we have that slice, and now we're going to insert this. You can play around with which direction it goes in, right? You could have the purple up there and the pink there, but this is what you don't want to do, is sew it together exactly like I just showed you here. You want this bit, I want to do it this direction here. You want this to overlap those corners so that if you imagined a line coming down, a line coming across, you wouldn't be cutting off the corner. Does that make sense? Right? If you line up right here, there's not going to be any fabric here and it won't be wide enough. We want it wide enough. So we're just going to pull that down like that so that when that line comes down, it's going to cover the corner. So once you're happy with where it's placed, go ahead and flip over and we're going to sew down this seam. I recommend sewing with the wider rainbow strip on top so you can pay attention to those seam allowances. You don't have any seam allowances on the long strip behind, but you do here. So sew this way and just start here, sew all the way down. Same seam allowance you've been using the whole time. So I've got the first one, and I do like to stop and press this. I'm going to go ahead and actually press it towards the center, towards the strip set of the skinny pieces. And the reason for that is that there's no seam allowances on that first one. The only time I would recommend not doing that is if your strips are really, really skinny and you're going to have like overlapping seam allowances. But I have sort of 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch on my skinny strips, so I'm okay with that. Okay, there's the first one. Now we need to sew this one in. There's a couple of different ways to kind of approach this. You know, do you want to have everything lined up perfect? If you want that, that does not look wide enough. Does not look wide enough at all. No, I would only end up being about 9 inches. So if you want to have these perfectly lined up, give yourself more room. Make this strip set wider. Okay? I don't care about it lining up, which is why I've discussed this whole thing with you. I love the little bit of wonkiness, can have some fun with that. So that's what I'm going with. Now, even then, right, there we go. That's going to get me that. How am I doing? Great for height. So I'm actually going to move that over just a touch more. And even when I sew that together, I'll have enough height. So I kind of like this offset sort of look. If you don't, if you would prefer that things line up more, make this strip set wider. So when you're measuring, right, from the width of this, add a couple of inches so you have wiggle room to make that strip set wider. Maker's choice all the time. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew that. Again, paying attention to my seam allowances, so I'm keeping them on top. That way I'll know if something wants to flip, you can stop it before it happens. I mean, really, is a flipped seam allowance a big deal? No, it's not. So I wouldn't stress if it does happen. Not at all. It's just one of those things that you can do to pay attention to how things are, to see that it's working the way you want. Okay, I'm again going to press. I'm not showing you because you know I never show you the last until it's assembled when it's the last seam. I'm pressing this again towards the middle strip set. So one of the sides will have 2 seam allowances kind of coming together towards the strip. I'll show you that on the back. But as long as it's not super, super skinny and overlapping, you're okay. See, mine are just touching in a couple of spots, but it's not overlapping. So you can see that on the back. And there's the block. Ta-da! I do like this wonkiness, but I can certainly appreciate them lining up. Absolutely. Double check for size. Oh yeah. Look at that. Very little extra. Not waste, just extra. I'm going to move this so I can square this up safely. So we're going to go up the one side and over. So really, those little bits are my functional scraps, and the rest, you know, I don't have a lot of excess, which works just fine for me. And we have, oops, missed the corner, the finished block. Ta-da! There she is, folks. Week 33 of the Quilters Playcation Adventure Sew-Along Rainbow Edition. So let's flip you around. Say goodbye to the ladies for this week. I've got to say, I know we're getting over a little over on time, but we are so close, so close to the studio being ready. Let me rephrase that. So close to the studio being legally allowed to be occupied. I'm still going to need a little bit of time to get everything over there and set up and ready. There's a couple of things that need to be built still, but I got some furniture over there waiting. I picked up a desk. I picked up the desk legs. We're building the top because we can do that. That's what our business is. So that's fairly easy. This cutting table that's in here, it will have to be disassembled and moved over there because I'm not actually sure it will fit through the door here. And it's really heavy. So yeah, that's really exciting. And then we're getting closer to in-person events there. The reason that I got excited for this update though is I don't know where I'm going to put my ladies in the new space. They're going to have to be put somewhere so that we can see them every week, but I just don't know where I'll put them yet. So we'll find places. We will. So that's the update there. There is week 33. That's the pastel version. There's my monochromatic version. Just a fun block. They're all that. I always say that, don't I? I do always say they're fun blocks, but anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I've got a mountain of other things to do today and dinner to get done early for my athletes. Everyone watch the Paralympic Games. They're coming up starting in a couple of weeks, and they're just as exciting as the Olympic Games. They don't have the big superstars, but they have tremendous athletes, and I'm excited to watch that as well. So, folks, have yourself a great week. Maybe next week I'll be able to tell you if we passed our occupancy permit, and we'll see where things go. And one of these days, we will be doing this Playcation, this weekly live at the new studio space. I'm excited. I'm so excited. And so is my daughter, because then she gets this room. It doesn't have to share with her sister anymore. So, you know, win-wins all around. I'm going to let it go on that. Have yourself a wonderful week. We will see you next time. I am your host, Cheryl Larkison. This has been the Quilters Playcation Adventure Sew Along Rainbow Edition for 2024. Take care, everybody. Love you.